Council. Good evening. We're going to be starting in a few seconds. So I kindly ask you all to please take your seats and electronic devices to be silent. Please, again, we're going to start in a few seconds. Everybody take your seats and please, to avoid disruptions, electronic devices to please be silent. And all the candidates, please take your seat on the dais. We're about to begin.
Test 1, 2, test, test, test. Test, test, test. Veamos el botoncito.
Yes. So I think we're ready to start. Good evening and welcome to Town Hall. Buenas noches. Bienvenidos a la Alcaldía de Town of Miami Lakes. We're starting now. My name is Gina Inguanzo. I am happy, as always, and honored to host the candidate forum, candidate debate. I am a resident of the town of Miami Lakes for the last 23 years, happily, and I love this town. I've been 12 years as an employee here of the town of Miami Lakes. And out of those 12 years, 9 I have served as a town clerk and supervisor of elections. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I welcome you all tonight to the Candidates Forum. And I emphasize on the word forum because although some people call it a debate, I like more the definition of forum, which means more conversations, dialogue. in a positive way, because we have to be reminded that all these individuals are residents of our town, our neighbors, colleagues, and that's the way that I want to keep it. High respect and professionalism. So emphasizing on that, I first want to welcome the 5 candidates that are sitting on the dais tonight, and I'm going to go in order of seats. For seat 1, we have Mr. Angelo Cuadra Garcia. Welcome, sir. Seat 1, we also have Mr. Mario Pineda Jr. Welcome, sir. And then for the mayoral seat, we have 3 candidates. And again, this is all done in order alphabetical. Mr. Josh Diegues. Welcome, sir. Mr. Tony Fernandez, welcome. And Ms. Juniette Gonzalez, welcome. Before I continue addressing more the public, I want to address to the 5 of you, thank you so much for running. I have developed a relationship with the 5 of you throughout the qualifying period up to elections. Thank you for always answering texts, answering emails in a promptly fashion. And with me, the relationship has been professional and excellent. So thank you. I also want to thank the 5 of you for the commitment, for signing up. And all of you, I want to say you're great neighbors. Thank you for that passion that I feel that you all have. Whoever gets selected will work long, endless hours in this building with a lot of meetings with me, with your colleagues on behalf of the community. So thank you. It says a lot of the 5 of you. For the viewers at home, thank you for virtually being in attendance. I know a lot of people couldn't come, but I know that you're watching via YouTube. So again, thank you for attending. And before I begin, thank you for my town council members, the ones here and the ones that are watching at home. Thank you for the town manager, Mr. Peterman, for town staff, for their support with me, specifically the communications department who helped me with the flyer and helped me with the posting on social media. So thank you all. So again, tonight it's a candidate forum. And I want to emphasize, as I did a few seconds ago, this is an educational experience, an opportunity for all of us and the ones at home to get a little bit of more information on the 5 candidates that are running for office. You're going to get to know them a little bit more and about their platforms and how they think and how their thoughts on key essential elements that affect our town. For me, this has always been an important night, and I always say the same thing. I take a lot of pride because I have a lot of neighbors that are friends and my family. It's my community, and they always ask me, hey, Gina, who do you think is the best candidate? Who's the person that I should vote for? And I can attest, and they all can attest on my behalf, that I never recommend anyone. I say, you know what? Educate yourself. So this is an opportunity for you to all do that. For me, transparency in government is essential. And it begins in events like this. So moving on. Thank you to the moderator that I think I've had for the last maybe 4 or 6 years, Mr. Alex Pinellas. Thank you again, because every time I text you, I think you fear me because you know what I'm going to ask, but I don't fear you because I know the answer I'm going to get, as busy as you are. So thank you again on behalf of myself, but on behalf, more important, of all the residents of the town of Miami Lakes, because they look up to you. So thank you for being here. And this year, I'm especially excited and thankful that we have the Miami Lakes Bar Association and the Miami Lakes Chamber of Commerce helping us, collaborating with us. They helped the moderator, and the chamber helped me specifically. I don't know where Tico is. I'm trying to locate him. Tico, thank you. Thank you, because you helped a lot. I saw it all the time in Instagram and Facebook. And knowing how you are, I know that everyone you spoke to, you probably promoted the candidates for it. And look, we have a full house. And again, a lot of people that are at home watching. So thank you, sir. So this means that in the next election, you both signed up. So we're gonna, because it worked well. And before I finish my opening remarks, now I want to end with a quote from the late US Senator and Florida Governor Bob Graham, who loved civics engagement and lived his life as a model citizen. And this is the quote: "We do not learn to function in democracy without actually doing it. We need to inspire people that there is a better future if they will become an active part." And this is what you 5 of you are, and this is what you all are, because you want to stay engaged and you want to stay educated. So without further ado, I have the honor now to introduce the mayor of Miami Lakes, Mr. Manny Cid. He wants to say a few words to all of you. And thank you. Right here. I cannot change. You have it. Mhm.
So every generation and every community leaves a gift for the next generation. Here in the town of Miami Lakes, our generation received one that's 45 years running, and that's the Veterans Parade. And Miami Lakes has become a beacon for all those folks who have served, and we've shown South Florida and Florida how important it is to honor men and women in uniform. Our generation leaves 2 gifts for that next generation of Miami Laker, and I'm hopeful that it lasts 45 years and beyond. Working with Councilwoman Ruano, we were able to make Miami Lakes an inclusive community where we care about everybody, regardless of ability, for special needs. And we become that community of hope for every single individual that needs a little bit of help. But this tonight is, to me, a huge gift for the next generation. No other community in South Florida produces this type of public service for its community. Think about that for a second. Going above and beyond, using these resources in good government in a transparent and accessible way. So that gift that our town clerk leaves for that next generation is a community of accessibility and a community of transparency where nobody else in South Florida does this. And we've become the example of those 2 things, being accessible and transparent for our community and beyond. And tonight's a great night. Like our town clerk mentioned, we have 3 amazing organizations putting this on. Obviously, number 1 is the town of Miami Lakes. Our clerk has taken so much pride in doing this because public service runs through her blood. Today, she doesn't even have a deputy. She's been working about 2 months now with no deputy. A lot of people don't know this. She's here on the weekends, making sure that things happen and things get done. And fortunately, 2 great organizations have joined them. One is the Miami Lakes Bar Association. The other is the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to introduce Mireles Castilla, who believes, just as I do and we all, that coming together, bringing our community together to hear different opinions, different voices is so important. So help me welcome Mireles Castilla with us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see so many familiar faces. Thank you for being here this evening. It's a very important evening. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Mireles Castilla. I'm the current president of the Miami Lakes Bar Association. I've had the pleasure of serving on the board of the Miami Lakes Bar Association since 2019. Part of the Miami Lakes Bar Association's mission is to collaborate in events such as this one, to give back to the community, because this is a very important evening. Thank you to the candidates for being here today. Thanks to them and to this event that we're going to have, you'll be able to make an informed decision in November. The Miami Lakes Bar Association is grateful to partner with the town of Miami Lakes, with the Miami Lakes Chamber, and with the Honorable Alex Panales. Thank you so much. A special thank you to Gina. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you to the candidates for your time here this evening. It's very important. We hope to have a very engaging evening, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam President. And on behalf of the Chamber, I know we have our Chamber President here tonight. who's going to say a few words along with Tico. But these are folks who their only goal, and you look at their organization, is bringing people together. So help me welcome Fred Senra with us tonight.
I'll go first really quick, Fred, so you can do your thing. Tico Casamayor, AC Graphics is my company. Obviously here representing the chamber. Very proud to be here. When Gina mentioned if we can be part of this and help, and she told me that Alex Panelas, who is probably my favorite and best neighbor in our neighborhood, I see him running, exercising all the time. It inspires me to come out and then chase him, but I can't keep up with him. I know he's running away from me because when he goes by my house, he goes like this. Oh my God, no, my God, no. But wonderful person, very excited to be here with him. All the candidates, all of them are good friends. I just met Miss Uniette today, wonderful person. I love her already because she took at least 3 pictures with me. I'm very, very proud of all of them. It takes great fortitude to do what they're doing. I've been watching them for a long time. People always joke with me, Tico, are you running for something? Are you running for something? And when I see what they have to go through, I say never in a million years. But I'm here to help them and all our small businesses because that's why I'm here. And also for 2 specific, oh wait, before I talk to them about them, same thing that happens to Gina. Everybody asks me, Tico, who do I vote for? Who do I vote for? You know them all. I tell them the same thing. You've got to choose, but I'm going to announce today that I'm going to tell you all what I'm going to do. So you know, and you don't ask me anymore. I'm going to get the ballot. I'm going to put a little line and I'm going to write, vote for Tico Casamayor. So if you want to do that, go ahead. If not, watch the debate and pick one of them. Now, the 2 people I really serve for, and the reason I'm here is for our Matthew Casamayor, your Economic Development Committee Chair of the town of Miami Lakes, and your President of the Chamber, Mr. Fred Senra. So I work for them. Whatever I do is because of them. So these are the people you need to listen to. This young man right here, Fred, all you.
Well, first of all, my name is Fred Senra, and I've been the president of the chamber for the last too long, for the last 4 years, and hopefully this will be the last. Hopefully we'll have elections coming in January, right? Legal, and somebody else will take over because I firmly believe that no one can stay in one position for a long time and expect the organization to grow. We have made wonderful progress in our local chamber. I remember when we took it over, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and the chamber was actually broke. Had no money in the bank. And now the chamber is very healthy, extremely healthy. Not only healthy because of the amount of people that we have in our organization, but for the activities that we have developed throughout the years. The chamber was kind of a dormant organization for many years, closed, if you will, not letting everybody in and not being very amicable to other organizations and things like that. But that all ended when I took it over because I believe in harmony. And I believe in getting and giving people the opportunity to prove themselves and to work, and especially for this lovely town of ours. The town of Miami Lakes, I've been a proud resident of the town of Miami Lakes for the last 43 years. Angel, my neighbor there on Dundee Terrace for many years. We've been here, we've been around for a long time, and we have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay, throughout all these years. But I have to say, I am proud to know the members of the existing council and our mayor, Manny Cid, and I have to say that they all have done a great job in their own right, and they don't have to agree. They agree to disagree, which is very healthy, obviously, but they have actually changed the face of the town, and I applaud you for it, and applaud all the members of the council for that, because I think that is great to have and to see. We had the opportunity of having the 2 candidates for seat 1 and 2 candidates of mayoral. We didn't know you were not in the picture when we did our podcast. And I have to say that I didn't have to mention anything. You know, we do the Miami Lakes Business Podcast on the wind. We don't rehearse. We don't, you know, like sometimes I get some questions, and you know, then I come up with my own questions and whatever. But I have to say that it was done very, very, very respectfully in both times, and I applaud you guys for that because there is no reason. I mean, you can disagree 100%, but it doesn't mean you have to be nasty. You know, you don't have to be nasty. You know, you can still be a gentleman or a lady and do things the right way. So I applaud you for, you know, for doing that. I think that, and I will encourage you. You know, I'm glad to see this full house tonight. And I hope that when voting time comes, you show the same enthusiasm, because the sad part about elections, and we were going to have a forum last month, and Mayor Pinellas was going to be there along with 3 other local representatives too. We had to cancel the chamber luncheon because of Milton, and obviously we didn't need to, but we had to, and we did, because of respect for the members of, you know, of the chamber and what have you. And I didn't want anybody getting hurt, you know, driving, you know, with wind or rain or flooding or whatever it is. So we decided to cancel the event, but it would have been a great event, and we're going to do it again next year, hopefully. But voting apathy is something that we need to, and I was talking to Gina. Gina was talking to me, you know, a while back, that she didn't understand why in the last election, I think less than 10% of the population here in Miami Lakes voted. What the hell is that? 10%. I mean, our destiny and our future and our present depends on our responsibility to vote. So vote. Some of us are going to vote for one or the other, but you need to vote. It's an exercise that this country of ours gives us. And when you have apathy in that respect, let me tell you, I can remember in the old country, Cuba, where that happens. And people didn't have the apathy because they, you know, and look what happened to us. We don't want that to happen to anybody. And we have the right, and we have the right to the future. We hold the cards. And we hold the cards, and we hold them accountable with our vote. So I encourage you, not only to be here tonight, and which I love to see all of you here tonight, but I encourage you to vote, whoever your candidate is. And tonight, hopefully, you'll be able to hear from all of them, and then you'll be able to make up your mind. So again, it's an honor for being here tonight, and we look for more events like this. The chamber is not just for business, it's community as well. And we work together with the Bar Association, with the BNI, with the Economic Development Committee, not because my grandson is a chair, but it is because it's the right thing to do. So let's keep Miami Lakes the town that we all love and that we all can be proud of. Thank you so much.
Some quick housekeeping. There were four folks that we had to recognize that are here tonight. Councilwoman Marilyn Ruano, Councilman Brian Morera, former members Jeffrey Rodriguez, and former member George Lopez, who is here tonight as well. But we're very fortunate because tonight we have a moderator who is of presidential caliber. I think we've all seen the presidential debates, and we could have said, well, you know what? The moderator of Miami Lakes could have probably done a little bit better. But not only is he a great moderator, he's a great family man, a great resident, a great attorney, a man of faith, and help me welcome the 5th mayor of Miami-Dade County who served our community honorably, Mayor Alex Pinellas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Muy buenas noches a todos. I'm delighted to be here as a resident of the town, taxpayer. Send a lot of money to the town hall every year. I am delighted to have this opportunity. Gina, thank you for the invitation to once again moderate this election, which is going to happen in just a few days. November 5th is right around the corner. And the reality is that thousands and thousands of people in Miami-Dade County have already voted. I'm sure many of them right here from Miami Lakes, and millions have already voted across the country, because obviously there's very, very important decisions that are going to be made come November 5th. As Fred and many others have said, it is a sacred duty and responsibility, one that we should all take very seriously and recognize that so many people we know and so many lands we have come from don't have the opportunity that we have. So I view it as a sacred responsibility. Having said that, today we are going to hear from candidates who will be on the ballot November 5th for 2 seats here in the town of Miami Lakes. They have already been introduced. We have 2 candidates for seat 1 on the town council, and we have 3 candidates who are running for mayor. We will be electing a new mayor now for the first time in 8 years. Mayor, thank you for your service, for the time that and the sacrifices you made for the town of Miami Lakes and the outgoing members of the council as well. Let's thank them with a round of applause for their service. I too want to thank the chamber. I want to thank the Bar Association for participating. I want to thank residents who submitted questions. I may not be able to use all of them tonight, but I will do my best to interject some of the questions that have been submitted. I also want to recognize and thank audience members who are here. If we have some time at the end, I may recognize a few of you for some additional questions. Not sure we'll be able to get to that, but certainly we'll try to do that. But most importantly, I want to take a moment to thank the candidates. Again, like I said, as a resident of Miami Lakes and a taxpayer here, I thank you for your willingness to serve. And I recognize, I know the sacrifices each and every one of you made. I made those sacrifices for many years. And more than them, it's their families who sacrifice. So I want to thank their families too for the sacrifices they make now, not only during campaign season, but once some of them are elected. It is a difficult and sometimes a thankless job. So we need to remember their families as well and thank them. So let me talk a little bit about the format that we're going to be using tonight. And some of you have participated in debates or forums that I've moderated. So the vast majority of the questions you will be receiving today are actually mine. Although I have received questions from the Bar Association, from residents, I'll try to use some of those, but the vast majority of the questions are mine. Most of them are based on research that I did on my own when I needed supplementary information, all of which was public record. I either called Gina, I also spoke to your budget director, but they did not offer me anything that I didn't ask for first, and it was all public record. So by no means did any town official suggest any questions or any topics that I could cover. Only I chose those topics, some of which coincided with questions that were submitted to me by email. I would appreciate it if you could be specific in your answers and be brief, because we have a lot to cover. We have a lot of issues to cover. I want to give each of you an opportunity. Now, if I'm not satisfied with your answer, or I don't think you're being specific, I'll stop you and I'll ask you to a follow-up question. I really want to get answers to the questions, and I may not ask the same questions of each candidate, and I may ask any of you at any time any question. So I may not just only focus on the mayoral or the council seats. I'll go back and forth depending on the subject. So kind of be alert at all times, because your name may get called at any moment. I really want this to be a free-flowing discussion, like Gina mentioned. And while it's not per se a debate, I do want it to be probing, and I will do my best to point out differences between the candidates. I think that's important. Okay, I think it's important for voters to know clearly what is the difference between candidate A and candidate B or candidate C, so you can make an informed decision. Okay, so I will try to bring out those differences as best as possible. Gina told me to try to limit this to about an hour and a half, so hopefully sometime around 8:30 or so we will be done with the forum. Let me make a couple of disclosures before we begin. For the record, and I believe all the candidates have been made aware of this, I have been a supporter of Josh Davis in the past. I have contributed to his PAC. I have contributed to his campaign. There is a sign of his in the front of my house. Okay. There is a sign of Mr. Garcia in front of his house. Believe me, I will show no favoritism towards them during tonight's forum. It is my understanding that all the candidates are aware of that and that no one has any objection with me proceeding. Is that correct? Okay. For the record, everyone has said yes. So if you all are ready, why don't we get started? And I thought a good way of starting would be by having the candidates talk a little bit about themselves and a little bit about their backgrounds. It's interesting because I did receive, of all the questions I received online, many of them had to do specifically with getting to know the candidates a little bit better. I'm just going to give some examples, and maybe this will help guide you guys just a little bit in your answers. For example, JP Garcia 1322 at Gmail wrote, what are your priorities? Just as simple as that, right? JP Garcia also wrote, what background experience do you possess that uniquely qualifies you to serve in the town? We had a question from lifesaversfd@yahoo.com. What have you done for the town of Miami Lakes? So that's just an example of what some of the residents are asking. And Mr. Panero, why don't we start with you? You're probably one of the newest members here. Introduce yourself and maybe use some of these questions as a guide to your response.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank all the community members for coming out. I'd like to thank my wife and my children for being here. Like I said, my name is Mario Panera. I'm a 45-year-old resident of Miami Lakes for 31 years now. I've been a member of the NIC Education Advisory Board. I've helped out with the grocery for seniors, with the church food distribution. I've driven a forklift across town in order to help out with the town. I organized a refrigerator container once we needed storage for food as well. My background, our family is fortunate enough to have a business in the auto parts industry for 41 years now. I've been a CEO for about 1 year in the family business. I manage about 48 employees, several export and import businesses, payroll, contracts, and so on. I've also partnered up with the Miami-Dade Fire Department. I donate cars for Jaws of Life in order for them to practice safety. I've been a service person since my children have been born in this community. I've always helped. I've coached basketball, baseball, soccer, football, you name it. I've been involved in the town as long as I've been here. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, your priorities.
Thank you. Before I talk about my priorities, I want to thank everybody in this audience. And by the way, everybody looks very well, very good. And let's have some fun tonight. My priorities are going to be 4. They're going to be public safety, trees, blasting, and traffic. And that's going to keep me busy for 4 years. Pretty busy. And by the way, I want to add to something. We hear a lot of people saying that they love. Whenever you want to see how beautiful this town is, join me at 4 o'clock in the morning when I sometimes have either driven my scooter or walked from my office over here by Johnson & Johnson and walked all the way to the other side on the west side where I live. And you could literally see how beautiful this town is. Not just drive it, with your windows open, but walk it. I've actually literally walked it. So, yeah, those are my 4 topics.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, sir.
To the mayoral candidates, we have a specific question on background from the Bar Association, which I like to read. So add that to the other comments I mentioned earlier. And the question goes like this: leadership. As mayor, you are the leader of the council, tasked with various responsibilities, including presiding over council meetings, representing the town in dealings with other governmental entities, executing all contracts, deeds, and other documents, including all town checks over $5,000. What leadership experience do you have that makes you qualified to serve as mayor of this town? Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. Many of you didn't know me yet. And it's really a pleasure to be here. This is a great opportunity for both of us, for you and I, to be able to know a little bit about each other. I've been knocking door to door, and I've met many of you, and it is a pleasure. I really thank you for taking your time and coming here to hear not just from me, but from all of us, because as they both said, we are just, residents that are really looking to preside just from here, but to help you, to always be there for you in anything that you need. To answer the question, like in every new relationship, I'm sure you have many questions about myself. And all I can tell you is that just so that you can learn a little bit about myself, I was born in Cuba, and I was newborn. I'm a born Cuban and a newborn American. I came here when I was very little. I thank my parents every day for that, because it has taught me not just to take advantage of the great opportunities that this nation offers everyone, but it has allowed me to defend and protect my freedom all along. So that is me as a new person here in the United States. And as a leader, what can I tell you? On top of being a business person for over 30 years in the private sector, I'm a mother and I'm a wife. So that gives me already the right equipment to being a leader. I've been a leader in every sense of the word.
So, Ms. Gonzalez, there's a specific question for you that I received from Miami Lakes Realtor 1@gmail.com. There are so many volunteer positions in our town between committees and HOAs. That said, why is it that you wanted to serve? Why is it that you have not served on any of them? And why haven't you given your time and effort there first, rather than deciding to run for our top elected seat, mayor of Miami Lakes?
That is a very interesting question. That is one that I have asked myself before. And the biggest answer to that, and the true reason to that, the true answer to that, is the fact that throughout the years, I have just concentrated in assisting and helping and leading on a one-on-one basis. Those that have wanted solutions to their problems, solution to their dreams. And along the way, I have served in different ventures. I have been recognized by Miami-Dade, helping and assisting on the shelters for domestic violence. And I have also served in other centers for the kids. It's just that I have not served here in town. And that has only been because, as I said, I have concentrated more on a one-on-one basis with the clients.
Thank you. Mr. Dieguez.
Thank you. Again, I also want to thank the audience for being here, especially my mother, who's sitting here in the front, and a couple other family members that are dispersed out in the crowd and watching. My name is Josh Dieguez. I'm a lifelong resident of the town. My family moved here in 1989, and I've grown up here ever since. I'm proud to say that we're now 3 generations in, and in that time, I've been a longtime volunteer. I served on the Elderly Affairs Committee, as well as chair of the Neighborhood Improvement Committee, where I helped to start the popular community bike rides. From there, I extended my community service as vice president of the Miami Lakes Bar Association, and then went on to get elected as a council member in 2018, and was subsequently reelected in 2022. In that time, I think that my experience as an attorney, specifically a litigator, has really helped to help avoid or keep the town from entering into certain thorny legal issues and help to preserve the taxpayer dollars in that regard. And I'd like to continue serving there because another key point of my background that I think is very important to note is before I even got elected, I would frequently join members of our council to Tallahassee to advocate for our priorities, blasting, more money for drainage improvements, road improvements, you name it. And that is one of, aside from running the council meeting, as you pointed out, that is probably the key thing that the next mayor or any mayor is responsible for doing, which is interacting with other governmental agencies and other politicians, right, or elected officials rather. And that's why I think, you know, from that experience, I met so many of them, and why many of them believe that I have the experience to be our next mayor, and why I'm proud to have the endorsement of leaders such as Commissioner Rene Garcia, State Representative Tom Fabricio, as well as three of our members on the council and our school board member, Robert Alonso.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez?
Thank you, Mayor Pinellas. I'm Tony Fernandez. I'm the current vice mayor of the town. My wife and I moved here in 2016, and it was a lifelong dream of mine, growing up in Hialeah from humble beginnings, to move to the town of Miami Lakes and start our family. And shortly after investing in what became our first home in Miami Lakes, I realized that it wasn't just a monetary investment. It also required an investment in my time and my efforts and my talents to make this community the community that I always dreamed of living in. And so I did that. Immediately after I moved to the town, I joined the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. Shortly thereafter, I joined the Youth Activities Task Force. All the while, essentially every volunteer opportunity available to me in this town, I took charge. I showcased my leadership skills, and those are the leadership skills that I use every single day as a small business owner. I opened my business in 2010. I've since grown it. I have more employees than the town has. I have a bigger budget than the town has. And so dealing with these business issues on a daily basis gives me the background to be able to deal with them as an elected official. Serving as a council member and vice mayor the last 4 years, especially this last year, obviously one of the duties of the vice mayor is to fill in when the mayor is not available. And so I've presided over meetings in his absence, and I felt that I've done a good job doing so. And it's really what I want to continue doing for the town of Miami Lakes, is really giving a little bit of me and my talents and my expertise to make Miami Lakes the place I always dreamed of living. Thank you.
Thank you all. So let's talk a little bit about money, right? It's always on everybody's mind. Things are costing more, inflation's up, but I'm not going to talk about the kind of money you're thinking about. I'm going to get to that in a moment. I'm going to talk about the kind of money that fuels these campaigns, because there's been an interesting role that money has played in this election. To put it in perspective, the mayor's position between salary, benefits, and retirement represents about $73,000 package to whoever is the next mayor. The council positions package, including health insurance, car allowance, expense account, mobile phone, although it doesn't have a salary, is about $15,000. So some would say, why would candidates spend so much time and money to run for these positions? And Mr. Fernandez, I want to start with you. And I was just researching some of the information that is all public information, and I give you credit for that. You've raised in your campaign account as of October 10th, $61,215, which is not insignificant. But what caught my attention was that of that $61,000, Mr. Fernandez, you yourself have lent your campaign $40,340. So of the $61,000, $40,000 has come directly from your pocket. Did a little bit more research. And by the way, in addition to that, we saw thousands of dollars of additional dollars from real estate related interests, a lot of charter school money, executives, et cetera, lawyers, et cetera. In addition, you disclosed to the Miami Laker in their questionnaire that you are involved with a political committee that's called Together Our Neighborhood Improves. You are the chairman of that committee, correct? That committee has reported $54,275, of which you personally or a company you own by the name of Layer 8 Solutions has contributed $49,975,000. So of the $115,000 available to you in this campaign, $90,000, Mr. Fernandez, is out of your pocket. Are you trying to buy this seat?
No,
Please, by the way, I should have said this earlier. There will be no noise, comments, applause, or otherwise from the audience, or else I should have said this earlier. This could get out of hand. So please, let's keep all of our comments to ourselves.
no, Mayor Pinellas, I am definitely not buying the seat. I believe in myself, and I think you should put your money where your mouth is. I would be more concerned with some of the other contributions that some of my other colleagues have
Oh, we're going to
received
get to that.
from other people.
We're going to get to that.
So just to clear it up, I think with me, you can rest assured that I'm not beholden to special interests. I'm not taking, big amounts of money from lobbyists, from there are one or two attorneys in there that are dear friends or client of mine, but I am not beholden to the same level that some of my colleagues are. It's my money, especially the money that goes into the PAC. I want to make sure that the money that I use in the PAC comes directly from me. My PAC, if you look at the acronym, it spells out Tony. I never put anything in the PAC that I want to hide. I want to be as transparent as I possibly can so that everybody knows where that information is coming from.
Right. The issue here is not transparency. Just the issue here is you've invested more money just in the last few months than the total salary for a year. Now, I understand that most of that money is yours and that it demonstrates that you're not beholden to any special interests. But can't the opposite be said true, that there just isn't any significant level of commitment or support for you in the community that would result in more contributions from business people, from lawyers, from residents here in town?
I mean, I guess you could read into that however you'd like. I think my record speaks for itself in that regard. And I think, look, one of the things that I would be committed to as mayor is getting rid of the mayor's salary altogether. For me, it's not about the salary. It's not about the paycheck. It's about what I can do to make the greatest impact to the community.
Have you had discussions with anyone about expanding charter schools here in the town of Miami Lakes?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Dieguez, any comment on this? Is trying to buy this election?
Well, look, I think he answered that question. I actually tend to be one of those that think, as you pointed out, that I think he's self-financing in large part because he doesn't have the deep support in the community. Again, I've been a longtime volunteer. I started off as an intern here in the town in 2005. I've been involved straight up throughout the entire process. And so, yes, we have a lot of community support. If you go down all my contributions, the bulk of them are easily Miami Lakers.
Talking about that, you've raised $57,404 as of October 10th, and it's a laundry list of lawyers, lobbyists, real estate money, development-related money, architects, engineers, other political committees. You received the endorsement of the Miami Realtors. There's a lot of people in town concerned with the overdevelopment in town. Are you beholden to these development interests?
Well, I'm beholden to engineers like Eugenio Ochoa, who's standing in the back there, who's one of those contributors who maxed out to my campaign. He's an engineer and he lives in Loch Lomond. I think I'm entitled to be beholden to him. As a real estate attorney, of course, I'm going to have all sorts of other clients that are willing to contribute to me to help me out. And I think we also need to be realistic. This is Miami Lakes, right? The greatest real estate interest here is the Graham family, and they're not getting involved in these races. And so when people choose to contribute to me, again, these are clients, family, friends, people I've met through this process of traveling with our councils over the years to Tallahassee and forming these relationships. These are people that are simply investing in me as their friend who they've known a long time. They're not asking for anything in return. And frankly, there's no money here for them to be getting from the town. But again, the special interest, the engineers, the architects, again, he's one of them right there. My friend, Mr. Bonet, who's a commercial real estate appraiser, is here. But they're just people who are supporting me as their friend or as a resident that they really believed in my vision.
Now, you told them in the Miami Laker questionnaire dated July 3rd, you indicated that you had no affiliation with political committees. Is that correct? Now,
At that time, yes.
well, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Why didn't you list, for example, basic principles, a state political committee? It's actually still active today, and it had activity in its, it made expenditures through the summer of this year. Why didn't you disclose that particular PC?
Well, first of all, I'm not the chair of that PC. We had a prior chair. He had to resign. The treasurer had informed me that they were going to close it up. It wasn't a committee I was affiliated with, but as far as I know, they were closing it down because I chose to have my own committee now called Miami Lakes First, which I am the chair of and which I am also using as a way to be more transparent. And again, the bulk of the checks there are from businesses in Miami Lakes as well. So I just want to point that out.
That is correct. And that is correct. You did file that after the Miami Laker questionnaire. That committee has raised $28,500. It has begun to send out flyers. I believe I received one of them. I've received this flyer with Mr. Rene Garcia, paid for and approved by Miami Lakes First, 7950 Northwest 155th Street. Is that PC, and will it continue to be active in this campaign, that particular PC?
Yes.
And how about People for Accountable Government, chaired by Commissioner Rene Garcia? He sent out this flyer, which includes an endorsement of your campaign as well as several others. That committee, and granted, this is not your committee, I want to be clear on this. That committee has raised $1,961,367. Again, it's not your committee. It's Commissioner Garcia's committee. You benefited from it, as did these other politicians who were listed on this flyer. Will this committee continue to be involved in your election?
You'll have to ask Senator Garcia that question, although I will note that he is not only a longtime state senator and state representative, but he's a county commissioner who's being discussed as a potential county mayoral candidate. So the fact that they've raised that much money is not that surprising.
Mr. Fernandez, is your opponent beholden to these interests? Seems like every real estate interest in town is supporting his campaign.
It's definitely a little bit concerning. I mean, that's really for him to answer.
What do you think about this, Ms. Gonzalez? A lot of money, huh?
Well, if you allow me,
Yes, I'm allowing you.
Mayor Pinellas, if you allow me just to joke a little bit about it, just by hearing those big numbers and having the experience that I have in the finance industry, I give myself as a loser already. I already lost the candidacy if it's based on the numbers. I was not aware of all these numbers that they have raised because my main interests have been in my dedication to this campaign. Perhaps because I feel this campaign as my first love. This is, something that is totally new to me, something that came from my heart, and I haven't really paid attention to whoever and what amount they have collected. Coming from a background of finances, as I've been a professional for over 36 years and a business person for 30, I can tell you that since day one, I said that anything that I put into this campaign was not really of my interest, only because I don't see it as an investment. I see it as a expenditure coming from me, because in reality, once I sit on this seat here, I will be working and I will be paid for earning. That will be earnings. So I would not see that it would be a good choice for me to put a lot of money of my own into the campaign because it's not an investment.
But the
it's
reality,
expenditure.
is you have, ma'am.
I have.
In the
Mhm.
last
Mhm.
2 months,
Mhm.
you have spent over $10,000 of your own money in the campaign, both as direct contributions to your account and in-kind contributions, $10,000. But let's leave that aside for a moment, because what most caught my attention was not the $10,000. It was a $100 contribution you made to Mr. Dieguez on November 27th, and another $100 contribution you made to him on December 5th. What's that all about?
That was just Unique Gonzalez, the resident of Miami Lakes for 27 years, who at the time was supporting him, was supporting Josh Dieguez. Now, from November until June, there was a switch from Unique Gonzalez, the resident, to Unique Gonzalez, the candidate, and it happened to be that we're in the same race. But that's the only explanation there is to that.
Now, let me ask you this question. If one of you does not receive 50% of the vote on November 5th, there will be a runoff, which I think, Gina, you told me would be the Tuesday of Thanksgiving, I believe you told me, correct? Now, if these two gentlemen were to go to the runoff, who would you support?
That is something that I would decide upon, because I have already made the decision of supporting only one person at this time, and that is Unique Gonzalez.
Gotcha. Very, very interesting. Were you asked by Mr. Dieguez or anyone on his behalf to run for mayor?
Not at all.
Okay, just wanted to put that on the record. So, Mr. Garcia, you thought I was going to leave you out of this? So, interestingly, you've raised $438 as of the 10th. 18,450 of that money was your own money. And on top of that, 2 years ago, you ran, and you also invested $11,515 of your own money in that election. That's almost $30,000 in 2 years. I mean, you must want the seat really bad, right?
Are you a CPA?
No, I'm not, sir.
You do very good. But anyways, what's the question?
The question is, can you explain why are you investing so much of your own money in this campaign?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, without money, you can't run a campaign, right? But getting to your answer on that one is, yes, I did make what do you say?
An investment.
An investment, just in case the campaign needs it. But I don't see the issue, or what is the actual question?
The question is whatever you make out of it. I'm just trying to allow you to explain why you would invest that kind of money. But I'm going to ask Mr. Pinero. Now, you've raised $6,800. I don't believe any of that is your own money. Do you think your opponent is trying to buy this election?
I believe my opponent, this is the third time at it. So second time. So it speaks for itself. If you're investing that type of money, then you're hoping for something.
Okay. But then again, you haven't raised so much yourself. Do you think you can seriously compete in this race with limited support, monetarily speaking, right? That doesn't necessarily translate into votes, but monetarily, with that limited type of support, do you think you can compete?
If you see my monetary support, it comes from the residents. I don't believe that going out to every single resident and hitting up for donations also is the proper thing to do in this time with high prices, inflation, and taxes and so on. I've been very modest with donations and asking. I put my feet on the ground, and I think that speaks for itself, knocking on doors. The money I raise comes from the residents. I don't believe that nothing towards anybody else putting their money, but in my sense, I believe that if you go out and you walk and you do the work, that'll speak for itself.
Very well. So let's move on to the other monetary issue, which is on everybody's mind, and it has a lot to do with the budget that these individuals will be called upon to approve. And I'm going to make specific reference to the budget that was just passed last month. The manager proposed keeping the millage rate flat at a little over 2 points. And really, a lot of the discussion at the commission level really centered around that specific issue, and whether to keep the millage rate flat or to adopt what's called the rollback rate. The manager indicated that by accepting the flat rate, it was the equivalent to a 7.9% increase. And I think the Bar Association kind of captured where I'm going with this very well in their question, and I want to read it, and this is going to apply to, for the most part, to both seats. Budget. For the first time in years, the town's annual budget narrowly passed with a vote of the council. It was a 4-3 decision, with council members Collazo, Dieguez, Ruano, and Morera in favor, and Mayor Cid, Vice Mayor Fernandez, and Council Member Garcia against. The question, as the Bar poses it, is why did you vote in favor? In the case of the council, I will ask you, how would you have voted on the budget, and why did you disagree with the other side? So the issue I really want to delve into, which is another one of these stark differences, especially between Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Dieguez, has to do with the millage rate. Mr. Dieguez, you were pretty firm in your belief that the town should maintain a flat rate, even though technically, again, because remember, property values go up. So if you keep the same rate, taxpayers will pay more money. Mr. Fernandez, you advocate for a reduction, not necessarily the rollback rate, but a reduction. So I want to give both, because that's a real big difference. Again, we're trying to identify differences between the candidates. That was a real difference, real votes. And I want to give both of them an opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about why they took the positions that they did. Mr. Dieguez, why don't you start?
Sure. So with respect to the millage, I think it's always prudent to at least, there are twice when you vote to set the millage rate, right? The first time you're setting the highest it can go, and then the second time you can go lower. There's a way to go north of that, but it's very difficult. So typically you go lower, right? And that's when you set your final millage. I typically like to start at the flat rate to kind of build out the budget, right? Bank the increases, yes, right? Because obviously our costs also go up just as it does in the private sector. And then from there, where we can cut, we cut, which is why over the last 2 budgets, I did support a tax cut in the property tax rate, right? And I would argue that also that philosophy was shared by Mr. Fernandez as well when he first ran in 2020. I'm sure you remember how that became a viral moment between you two. So, you know, he's had a change of heart, but, you know, it's actually pretty similar, you know, in that regard. And this year, unfortunately, we couldn't cut back the millage rate further, right? And the truth is the rates that or the cuts that were being discussed at that time maybe amounted to something like $17 in a savings to the homeowner for the entire year. But in terms of the real impact to our public safety, in terms of our police budget, our senior services, et cetera, it's pretty substantial. And most residents, when you go out there, and I've knocked on quite a few thousand doors by now, they're not telling me that they want to save $17. They're telling me that they want to make sure that they're safe, especially during the holiday season. They're telling me that they want to make sure that the pocket parks are well maintained. Our main parks are also maintained. The list goes on.
Well, that may be what voters are telling you, but what you told voters in this mail piece, and it was the very first bullet at the top, it says voted to cut taxes and fees 6 times in 6 years. And while I don't question that, the reality is that between first and second reading, you had 4 opportunities. There were 4 separate motions made by Mr. Fernandez and others to lower the millage rate, and yet you voted no each time.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me actually, I'll go into the 6 times in 6 years. Of course, I've been a council member now for 6 years. I pointed out that I voted for the rollback rate last year. I voted for the 2% reduction prior to that. I voted to reduce the assessments for those living in a special taxing district. The list goes on, right? And in fact, I have it all written down here if you really want me to get into detail. So I think my record is clear that where we can cut, I will absolutely cut. But I also said at the beginning of this process that I will not reduce the tax rate if it meant that I also had to cut into our public safety dollars, right? And so that was a red line that I drew at the beginning. And when it became clear that there was not a way to reduce the millage rate in order to maintain those core services, I could not in good conscience support cutting the rate this year.
On that point, Mr. Fernandez, isn't it irresponsible on your part? You told the Miami Laker you wanted to hire 2 new police officers. You actually voted during second hearing. You voted in favor of a motion to hire 1 additional police officers. You've advocated for a whole series of other expenditures, yet you want to roll back taxes. It doesn't add up, right? You can't lower taxes and continue to add more services. How do you justify that?
Gladly. So last year, we were able to adopt the full rollback. We were the only municipality in Miami-Dade County that was able to adopt the full rollback. This year, we would have been able to adopt the full rollback. Unfortunately, 4 of my colleagues felt it prudent to enter into a settlement with former Mayor Michael Pizzy to the tune of $1.625 million. So that left us with no carry forward last year and a $500,000 hole to begin this fiscal year. Had it not been for that, we would have been able to do the rollback again this year. Now, notwithstanding that, we would have still been able to do both the 3%, the 2.6% that I proposed, or the 1.5% millage reduction, because the pots of money that we spoke about, that we proffered as ways to balance the budget and lower taxes, were all sinking fund. The sinking fund is not, it's not public safety. It's not money that's in motion. It's the piggy bank. It's money that's set aside for a rainy day. So to sit here and say that you don't want to negatively impact public safety or make cuts elsewhere across the board, I think is
But Mr. Fernandez,
not accurate.
what were those cuts going to be? You have an obligation to present a balanced budget. Your staff, your budget director presented this this deck during the budget workshop, and they very clearly laid out the different items that you would have to cut if you adopted any version of the rollback. I'm just going to read a few of them. We would have to get rid of police overtime, no traffic enforcement, no burglary prevention, no holiday detail, go on and on. Further reduce tree trimming, reduce additional emergency janitorial services town-wide. I could go on. Operationally, your staff said that they would eliminate all training and education, no COLA for staff, no cost of living increases. I could go on and on. You can't just say you want to cut taxes. You've got to be able to say specifically. And I understand the Pizzy issue. We're going to get to that in a moment because that's a whole other issue. But if you're going to be responsible, you've got to say, okay, I want this amount cut from the millage rate, and these are the programs I want cut.
Alex, and I did that. So the motion that I made to cut the rate by 2.6 very clearly had the sinking fund identified as the funding source to balance the budget. That was, you can go back to the meeting and listen to it again. That was clear as day. That money is not going to be used for anything this fiscal year. That money is sitting there for the potential of needing to use it. It's not a cut in service. Now, let's take 3 steps back. Those items that you put forward were the suggestions that staff gave us. Of
course, I understand.
Right? And staff is always going to give us the worst case scenario. One of those recommendations was to cut the Veterans Day parade, right? Which is to an extent flippant. The difference between Councilman Dieguez and I is I understand that process a little bit better. My business acumen makes me understand that process a little bit better. And I detect when I'm being bamboozled.
Do you not understand, Mr. Dieguez?
I understand perfectly, but I understand that his ego sometimes gets ahead of him.
How? Could you explain?
Look, I think you heard his opening remarks in which he was bragging about the size of his budget at the company and how it's bigger than the town. The PAC is named after him. The list goes on. But the reality is, I want to correct a major misstatement that was made. We did have carry forward actually this year from the prior year budget. It was over a couple $100,000. You voted against it. But in fact, it was that money that paid for the new LED lights that we just unveiled yesterday at Veterans Park at the playground. So we did have carry forward, and I know we're going to get into the Pizzy settlement. I'll be more than happy to get there, but I do want to make one more comment about the sinking fund. Actually, we spent that money last year. We went through all of it. That's why it's so essential. We had to reduce the amount of reserves that we were carrying, thereby making us more and more reliant on debt because we're not putting enough to save for a rainy day. We are highly reliant on a $20 million credit line that we have in the event of an emergency. And we maybe have, I think it's 15% in reserves, which is down from the 17% that we had prior.
So,
And-
so is Mr. Fernandez being irresponsible? Is he presenting a responsible way of dealing with the budget?
I don't believe he is.
Well, Ms. Gonzalez, I was hoping you would like to chime in on this money issue. I mean, these guys are fighting over all this money. I was hoping maybe you could bring some clarity to how you would have handled the situation.
Definitely. However, they do have the numbers, they do have the facts about the budget. So unfortunately, this time around, I wouldn't be able to suffice much details in regards to the exact numbers. However, the foundation, when you know the foundation of a budget, the first thing that you analyze is the revenue that's coming in and the expenses going out. With that being said, what I would have done would have been to see exactly where it is that we're going higher. Are we going higher on the expenses? Or is it that we're not in any way going higher in the revenues to the town?
Are you planning on studying the budget a little bit more or in the coming weeks? I mean,
But of
that-
course,
okay,
I have always,
you haven't had a chance to do so yet.
on this one final that they have, not that I haven't done it, I have looked through it, but again, I would be very disrespectful of me to take sides or to criticize or say when I have not been in any way involved in it and I have not made a significant assessment of what the budget is right now.
Yet you told the Miami Laker very clearly that no to new taxes, and you were pretty clear in saying you would have voted for the rollback rate. Is that correct?
Yes, I would have done. I
What-
stand by
what-
my answers.
What would, in order to adopt the rollback rate, there's a cost to that. The flat rate. What would you have cut from?
As
What, and you don't necessarily have to have the budget in front of you. What do you see going on in this town that you think is wasteful that you could cut? What are you seeing with your own eyes as a resident?
I have not seen anything that it's a waste. And as I said, it will be very disrespectful of my side to make that kind of assessment when I have not assessed in any way, in reality, what is being used for what. What I can tell you is that I would always go for bringing in more revenues in any way. And that would be working together, with new businesses. That is always a great addition to our community. And what I would do is I would always be against cutting services, because services is all something that we all need here in town and something that we will be responsible for.
Mr. Panera, if I understood your answer correctly to the Miami Laker, you're actually against the rollback rate. You favor keeping a flat rate. Is that correct? And could you explain?
Yes, given the situation of the previous year, I would have left the rate flat. As everybody knows, we had a lot of expenditures this year. We had inflation, cost of living went up. And just like the cost of living goes up for everyone, goes up for the town as well. As they said, the budget needed extra expenditures. I would have left it the same. That would have probably covered those expenditures.
Mr. Garcia, how do you feel about this budget debate? How would you have voted on the budget?
Mr. Mayor, I don't speak big words, Harvard or Stanford vocabulary. I give it to you simple.
I went to the University of Miami.
I'm sorry, sir. Keeping our tax base as low as possible for the residents, but not jeopardizing the quality of service.
Gotcha. But the question is, Would you support the rollback rate or the flat rate? It's a simple concept which you need to be aware of if you're going to pass a multi-million-dollar budget. The flat rate means the rate stays the same way it was last year, but because property values go up, it means taxpayers pay more. The rollback rate is a rate that accounts for the increase in property taxes. So you roll back the rate to a level where taxpayers would pay the exact same amount they paid the year before. That's the concept, and that's something that it's one of the you have two responsibilities as a council member, and two only. You have to hire a county manager. You have to pass a budget. That's all you have to do. So you need to be able to answer that question, whether you support a rollback rate or not. Well, having said that, I'm not, maybe you could think about it and give us the answer later. I want to stay on the budget because there's a few other issues that are very important. And Ms. Gonzalez, I'm going to start with you this time. You told the Miami Laker, quote, "The town should create its own police force and fire department." You said that on July 31st. How come? Why should the town create its own police and fire department? And of course, the obligatory follow-up to that is, how much is that the cost? And where are you going to get the money for it?
As I've been told before and recently in a previous debate, I'm sure that that will be a question better for Mr. Fernandez, since he says that he has been part of a new study in regards to finding the exact cost of the police department or the additional police
You
officers.
have to have some reason for saying that to the Miami Laker. Do you not like the Miami Lakes police activity? Do you think it's lacking in some regard? Do you think that the county fire department doesn't respond quick enough to Miami Lakes? What prompted you to say that the town should have its own fire and police department? Something must have put that idea in your mind.
The reason why I said and I mentioned about the police department and the fire department is not because in any way I don't like them. On the contrary, I respect them because they're not only there serving, but they're there first line protecting us. I have never in any way implied that I don't like their existing service to us here. Not at all. What I was open to do was, if necessary, if it makes sense, once I'm here as a leader and I see and assess that it makes sense for the town, that I will be open to creating and doing anything possible in order to bring it to the town.
Mr. Garcia?
Question to that in law enforcement. I think that if it isn't broken, let's not fix it. It's been working fine for 24 years. Why get a new police department? Actually, by doing that, I think you'd be doing the wrong thing. The county already has established a system and it works. Why change it?
I do agree with my call here. I don't think the town could afford a police department at the time. I think the budget for a police department and fire department are extraordinary. You need HR services, carpool. You need too many things for it to happen. And like you said, the police and the fire department are doing a phenomenal job. The police department here in the town respond to every call. They're at the schools. They do an amazing job. I don't think that we need to change something that doesn't need to do.
Mr. Fernandez?
So I definitely don't think we should have our own police or fire department. I think there's very high upfront costs. There then becomes this honeymoon period where it looks like it's a good idea, and then you start getting hit with high pension liabilities long term. I don't think that's the route that we should go through. However, I do think that there is a great opportunity nearing, because as we all know, Miami-Dade County is transitioning to an elected sheriff. Our contract actually recently expired. Where services are continuing under the former contract, under one of the provisions of that contract, but there will be an opportunity for the next mayor to negotiate better terms of that contract, and not necessarily terms that increase or decrease the overall cost of the contract, but there may be more favorable terms that we can obtain from negotiating that contract again.
So you're open? I mean, your response, Mr. Fernandez, is you're open to looking at the issue. It's subject to negotiation and more study. Is that fair?
My point of view is that I'm open to renegotiating and improving the existing contract that we have, not necessarily looking at other alternatives.
Fair enough. Mr. Dieguez?
I think it's safe to say that on that, we do share the same view, with the only caveat is that I do want to follow the advice of our Sheriff Ad Hoc Advisory Committee to go ahead and get a study done, because yes, we know it's going to be very expensive and it's probably not going to be worth it for us. But until we get hard numbers, we're just kind of, spitballing here. So, but generally, I agree with Mr. Fernandez on that.
Councilman Dieguez, didn't you vote against funding that study?
I voted to defer it as I put my comments on the record.
If you're going to ask one of your colleagues a question, please let me know first. So the Bar Association submitted the following question also on public safety, which I want to read. When most families make the decision to move into a new community, public safety is usually a major factor in their decision. The council has recently debated whether to hire more police officers or continue funding temporary task force of overtime officers in order to curtail the increase in vehicular break-ins. Which option do you think is best for the residents of Miami Lakes? Hiring more officers or more overtime? Mr. Pinero, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Alex. My opinion on this is to first see the locations of each police officer, put them at the right locations that are needed. I would definitely look at the expenditure between overtime and hiring a new officer and see what would be the best option for the residents. If, let's say, the hiring a new officer is a lesser fee to the residents, then I would believe that would be the greater choice of the two.
Ms. Gonzalez?
That is an interesting question, because as I see it, I don't believe in burning or overworking our police force. I think that I will be more open to taking all the necessary steps with a full assessment of the cost to possibly hire new officers, additional officers to help the existing ones, and not gear just towards paying overtime and giving them excess work.
Mr. Garcia?
Basically, I would meet with the town manager to see what is the need, and also get the community involved and get some feedback from the community to see if it's needed. But definitely, I would leave that up to the town manager to bring that recommendation to the table to the council.
Mr. Dieguez, while I recognize that you supported keeping the overtime budget intact, your colleague, Councilmember Garcia, made a motion during the second budget hearing to fund one additional police officer. That motion failed 3-4. You voted no. Yes, you voted no on the motion. And Mr. Fernandez voted yes. Again, it's one of those clear differences where there was an opportunity during the budget hearing to hire one additional officer. You voted no, you voted yes. Can you explain your vote?
Sure. Well, I also want to provide context for the public that we're talking about the last budget meeting, which was 2 or 3 days, give or take, until the new fiscal year began. And all of a sudden, all these motions started coming up. It seems a little convenient. With that said, just as you pointed out earlier, I don't know if it's my mic or somebody else's, but just as you pointed out earlier, is that if we're going to hire a new officer at the tune of about $160,000 a year, we need to find the money for that, right? And coming out of, as I pointed out earlier, I did not feel that defunding our savings accounts, one of them, the sinking fund, which we went through all, the entire month, the amount that was in there last year, that was just not a prudent move. And what's more is that this is on the advice also of our current major, right? Our current major feels that we are completely covered for what we need right now with the overtime funds. In the future, yes, he would like to see more officers, but for now, he felt he had adequate resources. So I was following the advice of our town commander.
Mr. Fernandez, were you pandering to those people who want more police officers? I mean, it's $160,000. Where were you going to pay for that?
I was going to pay for it from the sinking fund.
You've been
money that I
funding a
mentioned.
lot of things from the sinking funds.
Well, it's
I mean, it's sinking real fast.
very fast. Very, very fast. The sinking fund this year was funded at the highest level it's ever been funded. It was funded almost 3 times as much as the highest time before that it was funded, right? So if I have a choice between doing what residents are asking me to do, which is to have more visible patrol services in our neighborhoods, right? And sticking money in the piggy bank and letting the bureaucrats at town hall figure out what to use it on, I picked the former all day, and I stand by that decision. Furthermore, this has been a recurring conversation. Yes, the major who responds to the town manager has repeatedly said that he prefers the overtime expenditures over the full-time staffing. But I've looked at the numbers that we were given initially, they don't jive. They don't jive. It makes much more sense to reduce the overtime burden and add that additional police officer.
I want to, one last budget issue that I want to touch upon, and I believe, Mr. Dieguez, you mentioned it, and that was the decision to settle the Pizzy litigation issue. As we know, by way of background, the town council voted to award Mr. Pizzy and his lawyers approximately $1.6 million, I believe it was, to be paid over 3 different budget cycles. And that is in addition to the almost $2 million that the town spent litigating this issue, not litigating the Pizzy conviction itself or accusations itself, but the actual issue of whether he was entitled to attorney's fees. Your town council strongly recommended, in the best interest of the town, to put this issue behind it, and because of the uncertainty related to the fact that there was a new judge, that there had been some recent defeats in court, that it was in the town's best interest to put this issue behind it. Again, this is one of the issues where 2 of the mayoral candidates were in stark contrast. Mr. Dieguez, you followed advice of your council and voted, although you stated very clear on the record, this was a bitter pill for you to swallow. It was very clear. You voted yes to follow the town attorney's recommendation. Mr. Fernandez, you voted no. Would you care to elaborate? Mr. Dieguez.
Thank you. And I'll begin with a quick and very non-legalese terms overview of how we got to this point. Earlier this year, 2 separate courts ruled that the town was responsible and liable to pay Mr. Pizzy's attorney's fees. When you tack on interest, that's over $4 million in potential liability to this town, right? Now, we could have potentially appealed it on some technical grounds, but that is a crapshoot, right? And as the mayor, as Mr. Pinellas pointed out, we had already spent over $1.9 million over 11 years on this saga, right? So rather than continue the bleeding and wager using other people's money, because in the private sector, when this happens with my clients and they want to make this about principle, they're willing to put their own money behind it. But this isn't our money alone. This is our taxpayers' money, right? Rather than continue to basically roll the dice and see if on the second turn, maybe things will turn our way, I decided to stop fighting yesterday's battles to focus on our future tomorrow, to be able to do things like more infrastructure, hire police officers and everything else. Because again, by the time we have final resolution, we could be another 5 years out from now, and it could be another $1.5 million in, and potentially with a higher judgment against the town down the line. So rather than kick it down the road to another council and make it somebody else's problem, I thought it was prudent to go ahead and, as you pointed out, follow the advice of not just Mr. Costessi, but all the attorneys that were litigating that case and settle it, as well as using, going back to the introduction, my own knowledge as an attorney to make sure that our taxpayers are protected.
Mr. Fernandez, you've talked a lot about your business acumen, how good of a businessman you are, but yet you said on the record that you just couldn't vote for this out of principle. We can't have it both ways. Was this a principled vote? and a bad business decision on your part? What led you to vote no?
So, first of all, doing the right thing is always good business. It's always good business practice, right? I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that the town's position was the right position in this case. Anybody that argues that what Mayor Pizzy did was serving a public purpose, frankly, I can't disagree. I can't disagree with him any more than I already do. Now, I think Councilman Dieguez said something very, very important, and I think it may be the reason why he decided to vote for this. Notice he said he didn't want to kick the can down the road and make this a future council's responsibility. I think Mr. Dieguez made the decision to take the politically expedient route and dispose of this issue while Mayor Cid was still mayor, and put the issue behind him and not have it tar his administration going forward. I think that's the motivation why he did it. But it certainly wasn't the right thing to do. The estimates that our attorneys gave us is that at most it would have been $400,000 to appeal the matter. We paid $500,000 year one on that settlement. And to say that it was, to build a better future tomorrow, no, we mortgaged yesterday, this year, and next year to pay for these fees that we should have never paid.
You care to respond? He's basically saying your vote was politically motivated.
Well, I think that's some very convoluted logic, considering that he just made a dishonest ad against me on that. So I think the only one who's making political hay out of this is Mr. Fernandez, and trying to monetize it, or rather politicize it for his own gain. Clearly, I took a principled stand, that wasn't popular, but was in the right interest for this town to put this behind us. As he pointed out, it would have been $400,000 just for the appeal. If we were successful in that appeal, what does he think we're going to spend when we have to retry the case from scratch? And then what about appeals after that? Again, this is where my background as a litigator has absolutely, without 100% certainty, helped us avoid rash decisions.
Ms. Gonzalez, yes or no? Settle the Pizzy matter. Were you for or against it?
Once again, I don't have as much information as they do. They have been part of it. So it would be very incorrect for me to render my decision on that, just to render it just based on what I'm hearing. However, what I would have done, and what I would have stood firm on, would have been whatever made sense for the town.
Gotcha.
That would have been my answer.
Mr. Pinero.
No, I would have not settled. With my experience with Mr. Pizzy, I've dealt with him before in the town of Medley, and I find him to be a crook. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, interesting. Pizzy donated $500 to your campaign 2 years ago. You remember that? How would you have voted on this matter?
The individuals that made a rumor out of it, of Mr. Pizzy bringing $500 to the table, I told that individual, which actually is in the room right now, that I would return the $500 back to Mr. Pizzy if he would actually, write me a check to help run the campaign. So what would I have done? Whatever makes sense. Whatever makes sense. Whatever the council, the manager, that's why we pay him the big bucks. And whatever the actual residents think would be the best. In my case, it's a tough one. If we keep fighting it in the courts, what happens? We continue to use and waste our taxpayers' dollars. So I don't have the answer to it. I don't have the best answer for you.
But you
right now.
understand that once you're sitting up there, you've got to vote yes or no.
Absolutely.
You can't just say that you don't have an answer.
Yeah. So
Okay. Let's there's 3 or 4 issues here I want to get through relatively quickly. So we're gonna kind of go through these quickly. And I want to talk a little bit about the performance of the manager. Again, as I mentioned before, that's one of your basic responsibilities. After this election, there will be pretty much a new town council and mayor. And I'd like to hear from each of you, what do you think about the performance of the manager? Would you be willing to rate his performance? Do you think he should submit his resignation? to the new council and let you all decide whether to keep them or hire someone new. And let's start with you, Ms. Gonzalez.
What I've been seeing and hearing from the town manager, I would not be in favor of him just resigning and leaving it up to us to make any decision, because I'm confident that the council that made the decision among the opinion of the residents, I'm confident that they made the right decision to bring him over. And he has been involved in our community, in our town for years and years. And I do think, as what I am right now, a resident and the public records, I think that he's been doing a good job, and I would just assess it from that point forward.
Mr. Garcia.
Basically, I would actually, and I've said this before, him and any other employee of the town needs to have a report card. Just like when we were in high school, we'd go through a report card process. There's always room for improvement. We have an issue that I have a very thing with me. We are a very small town, and I don't think we need 2 managers. Now, I can elaborate. It would take me some time, but one of the things that I would actually state that is that we only need 1 manager in this town. We don't need 2 managers.
Mr. Fernandez, Mayor Cid says we have a 2-manager system. Do you agree with that? Do you think we're top heavy?
I definitely think we are top heavy, and there is one point that I could not agree more with Mr. Garcia. I think the biggest problem that we have is the structure of the town manager's contract, right? So under the town manager's contract, we have no way of keeping the town manager accountable other than dismissing him. It's the only recourse that we have. So when the town manager gets a B, gets a C, gets a D, you have to weigh it. Like, did that resident sidewalk not get fixed to our satisfaction? Well, that's not grounds for firing a city manager. But we should have in the next town manager's contract mechanisms to hold him
What
or her
kind of a managerial timeout? I mean, what are we talking about?
Certainly not a managerial timeout, but there are things that can be implemented: performance pay, bonus structure, community feedback. There are a lot of different metrics that can be used rather than just, continuing to grow his salary through COLAs. I think there are other ways to incentivize better performance out of our town manager.
Mr. Dieguez?
So, as the mayor and former Vice Mayor Rodriguez remember, actually, I implemented a yearly performance review for the manager. Unfortunately, I was the only one that would fill it out on a regular basis, and so it kind of died out after a while. So I think it is important. I think Mr. Fernandez is correct that it would have been great to load these things into the contract, but we just voted to reapprove his contract like less than 2 years ago. I would be interested in having those conversations the next time it comes up for renewal. But at the end of the day, look, I think Mr. Peterman on balance has done a decent job. I think the biggest hurdle that he has in performing his duty is that there's constantly motions being made to fire him. Unfortunately, the mayor and him have a ongoing disagreement. And I think what he needs is a partner in the mayor's office that's going to at least help him, and partner with him instead of working against him. And I think
Would you be that partner?
I would, at least to give him a fair shot before we make any further decision on what to do with him, with his future.
Mr. Panera?
Thank you, Alex. I don't believe that the price that we have for our manager for 33,000 residents is correct. Compared to some of the other towns and municipalities, our town manager is getting paid way over. We have 2 managers. I believe that the one makes over 300,000 and the other makes over 100,000. Why are we paying over $400,000 for 2 managers? We don't have, the manager doesn't report to the police department, doesn't, have a fire department. He manages over 44 people in the town. I don't think that price for a manager, nothing against him, he does a great job, but I don't believe that price is accurate.
The next issue I want to touch upon quickly has to do with whether you're going to be an independent mayor, independent members of the council. We've seen over and over, and we just saw it with the budget vote, a 4-3 vote on most of the critical issues with Mayor Cid, Councilman Fernandez and Garcia on one side, Councilmember Dieguez, Ms. Ruano, Mr. Collazo, Mr. Morera on the other side. And it's something that really concerns a lot of the residents. They're hoping that when you all arrive at your position, you will be independent voters. You will do what's right, not what your group calls for. Mr. Panera, you've monetarily supported Mr. Fernandez. You gave him a $250 contribution on October 19th of last year, another $150 contribution in July of this year. You attended Mr. Fernandez's mayoral kickoff. Are you teammates with Mr. Fernandez?
No, Alex. Tony is a friend of mine. I've known him for quite some time. We always help each other out when we need something. But again, my main focus is the residents. What is important for the residents is what I would be voting for. They come first, not my opinion, not my perspective, not Tony's perspective, or the rest of the members up here. What matters is the residents.
Again, we hear this repeatedly. Every time we hold one of these forums, we hear about how you all are going to do what the residents want, but then we continue to see this block voting. Mr. Dieguez, you've received monetary and public support from Council Member-elect Herzberg, from Councilman Morera, from Councilwoman Ruano. Are you expecting those folks to vote your way?
No, and actually, Mr. Herzberg donated also to Mr. Fernandez earlier in the year. So, I think he's trying to work with everybody. Mr. Moderator actually hasn't given me a check. You owe me, But yes, he has been publicly supportive. And, again, even amongst friends, we disagree. Marilyn and I, for many years, actually, we're not always on the same page. Councilman Collazo, who I consider one of my best friends, and and I'm almost an uncle to his kids. We have also voted against each other on different issues as well. So this just happens on some issues where inevitably there are some blocks that form. And, unfortunately, it's that balancing act, right? When the council's united on an issue, you have some people say, no, we need you to be more independent. When we are more independent, oh, no, are you just picking teams? So, these things happen.
What do you think about these guys teaming up to form their own teams? You think that's right, or you think they should vote their conscience on issues?
One of my biggest motives of running for mayor is the fact of seeing how divided our town is, not only the government, but even the residents. And that is one thing that has to end. From my perspective as a resident today, and my desire as a running mate is that I don't want division in this town. We don't need division. That is why my campaign is very clear in saying that we have to work together. Sometimes we tend to forget that we're here for them. We don't work here for anyone else but for them. There are going to be differences, but my peace of mind and my guarantee is that I don't have anybody on my side. You can go back to my public records, and I haven't even received acknowledgement for my candidacy from those that I have supported. So to this point, I totally independent.
Mr. Fernandez, you've been part of the mayor's team now for a while, and a lot of these controversial votes, you guys have been voting together. What do you say about this issue of independence? What can you tell the residents? Really, not me. What do you tell the residents on that issue?
So I think, look, there's been many important votes where I've differed on the issues with the mayor, right? So most of the motions that he's made to fire a town manager have been motions that I've disagreed with him on. The drainage improvements that were really the foundation, the most important thing I've done on this council was spearhead and move forward the drainage improvements in 2021. I differed with the mayor on that. I've always had the ability to be able to work with others, with my colleagues. Sometimes my colleagues haven't reciprocated, you don't necessarily want a completely harmonious council. You see that in some municipalities around Miami-Dade. You don't want groupthink. You want people that are independent thinkers. And what I can tell you is the items on here that have best served the interests of the residents have been the items that we've all gone into disagreeing on, and we've been able to forge compromise and come out and produce a better product for the residents. And that's what I hope I can help lead us to do for the next 4 years.
Mr. Garcia, if there is a runoff election for mayor between Mr. Dieguez and Mr. Fernandez, who will you support? Okay, Mr. Panera? Can you say that to the mic so everybody can hear you, please?
Be supporting Tony Fernandez.
Okay, just for the record. Quickly, a couple of other issues. Blasting. I want to talk about blasting because, again, it's still an issue. It seems like every time we have one of these forums, the issue comes up over and over again. I think I can fairly say that a lot of residents feel that we have not made much progress on the issue. Yes, there's been a lot of trips to Tallahassee. There have been a lot of meetings with the insurance commissioner. There have been a lot of discussions with the state representative, but there's not been real action. Yet people tell me all the time, but when the legislature really wants to get something done, when the governor says this is a priority, it gets done. It gets done day one of the session. The blasting issue is not. Why is that? Who is the governor to blame, Mr. Dieguez? Have you all not done a good enough job of convincing the governor? Have the state reps not done a good enough job of making this a top priority?
No, I think the governor is busy being a governor for an entire state, and so he has many different issues that he has to worry about. As for Representative Fabricio, it's well documented. Mr. Fernandez has backed up his efforts. Mr. Fabricio has continued to fight for us in Tallahassee year after year, as is Senator Avila. And unfortunately, when you only have really 60 days realistically to pass legislation, and on top of that, you have to convince often members of other delegations that just don't have this problem, or maybe are even cozy with that industry in other parts of the state. It's a very difficult issue. I'm not going to lie to the voters. It's a thorny issue, but I'm proud to say that I have advocated for blasting relief all 6 years that I've been in office, even before I got elected. Former Representative Manny Cid Jr. appointed me to an informal task force with Albert Aguiar and a couple other residents, in which we discussed potential solutions. And I'm proud to say that it was my idea to talk about returning jurisdiction for blasting related claims back to Miami-Dade Circuit Court instead of going through a separate legal process known as the administrative hearing process.
But Mr. Fernandez, a lot of things get passed in Tallahassee on day one. And yet this issue, in spite of Mr. Fabricio's advocacy, Manny Diaz, Brian, what is it about this particular issue that does not get top billing in Tallahassee? Let's be frank. People think that our representatives are just getting a lot of lip service.
Rocks are big business, apparently, right? So the biggest issue that we have is really it's Representative Fabricio and Senator Avila, the ones that have constituents that are affected by this issue. And the other 139 legislators in Tallahassee live in districts that benefit from the cheap rock that quarry produces, right? So even if lobbyists weren't involved, even if everything was seen on its merits and on its face, they would all argue that they're making the best decision for their constituents. Unfortunately, in that respect, the deck is stacked against us. I think we need to move more towards an approach where the state steps in and either gives the miners an incentive to extract the rock in a way that is less damaging to our homes, or makes our homeowners whole. Because what's happening now, and I said it in front of the committee that we spoke in front of in Tallahassee, what's happening right now is that our residents are being unfairly taxed by the destruction of their homes to subsidize somebody else getting cheap limestone aggregate. And that's not fair. So the state needs to step in. We understand it's a material of strategic importance for the state. The state should do its part and make our residents whole.
Mr. Panera, I was very impressed, by the way, with your answer to this question to the Miami Laker. You propose what appears to be a very aggressive litigation approach to this. Could you elaborate?
Correct. My proposal is, at the end of the day, we're fighting a David versus Goliath. We should see a different approach. We should try to take the approach that it's unconstitutional that we can't fight for our own property and our own values. We have to figure out, you're never going to stop the mining. They call it white gold for a purpose. It's always going to be everything, the buildings that you have, the roads that you have, is that materials come from. So we have to try to figure out a different approach, perhaps that's not unconstitutional, that you can't fight for your own property. So that would be my approach.
Mr. Garcia, you were a member of the Blasting Advisory Board. What can we do about this issue? Very briefly.
Mr. Mayor, you actually are a very intelligent man. Maybe you.
Well, thank you.
You can also maybe can help us. You would be another asset and help to bringing a solution to this. We have experts here, numerous attorneys here in town right now. It is an animal that we're fighting. Just as the gentleman, my colleague said, it is Goliath versus David versus Goliath. I don't have the answer. We've been up there. We've done everything possible, but I will tell you one thing. And thank you, Marilyn Ruano, which was actually my sponsor to getting on board on the Blasting Advisory Board. But I don't have the answer to it. But I will tell the miners, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop advocating for it.
Ms. Gonzalez, similar to the blasting issue, the county is proposing how to build a new incinerator. There not many people are talking about that here in the state area, but that could also impact our quality of life. What do you know about the incinerator, and do you see any parallels with the blasting issue? And what would your approach be?
As far as the incinerator, of course, as a resident of Miami Lakes and the nearby cities, I have been informed about it. However, in regards to the blasting directly, which has been the topic here, I have been affected by the blasting as I reside on the west side of town. And that is one issue that really touches me personally as a resident. And that is that I refuse to accept the fact that there is no solution to that problem. That would be like the only problem ever that I've heard of that has no solution. Instead, since I've been listening here to what they've tried to do, and the answer from Mr. Dieguez was, it seems like it's not of their interest. What I would do is I would propose to get a better plan to propose to them, not just to propose, but to present to them of different opinions, different solutions, even if we have to go out of the Miami-Dade, the county or the state or the federal governments. Is just different opinions with an actual plan that would make it interesting to them. And maybe perhaps on that route, I'm sure that they would get attention to our problem.
Mr. Panera, the Optimist Park issue was front and center here for, and still is to a great extent. You've been a proponent of flag football, other youth activity. I think we pretty much know the position of most of the people on the dais on that issue, but I'd like to hear from you and Ms. Gonzalez on Optimist Park and what you think we could do with that.
Thank you, Alex. I believe that Optimist Park should be remodified, but I don't think that the cost should be to the residents. I think there's enough members in the town and players, private public partnerships that we could come together, the school board, the Orange Bowl committee, perhaps, that we could come to agreements. But again, I don't think that it should be just the residents that fit the bill.
Ms. Gonzalez?
In regards to the Optimist Park, I do agree with Mr. Pineda. I don't think that we have to take over such an investment or such an expenditure when yes, indeed, our kids deserve the park. They do use of it, but most of the kids that use the park are not from Miami Lakes. So why should we be investing so many millions of dollars in something that we can do in a lower budget and not just take it from a park to a new, high and expensive center?
Just for the record, and gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fernandez, you were a supporter of the bond program for the park. Mr. Dieguez, while you voted to put it on the ballot, you actively campaigned against it. And Mr. Garcia, you opposed the bond issue for Optimist Park. Is that correct? Let me,
Mayor Pinellas, if I may.
yes,
I
very
wouldn't,
quickly.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that Councilman Dieguez actively campaigned against it.
How would you put it?
I think his position was a little bit more fluid. I think he was more than happy to accept whichever outcome it was that came. I took a stance on principle. God knows I've been hit on it, but I stand by the decisions that I made. And I think the difference between being a leader and being mayor and just simply being a councilman is that the community looks for you for guidance, for leadership, for you to have a position. You cannot simply stand on the sidelines, be ambivalent, and say, "Well, I'm happy with whatever happens." I think the voters deserve, the residents deserve to have somebody that's going to take a position. Maybe a position they don't agree with, but I think somebody that takes a position is somebody that shows those leadership qualities that are necessary to be mayor.
Mr. Diaz, you care to respond?
Yeah, and look, I think that very clearly over the last couple of days, he's gone from being friendly and jovial to just being a tack dog. And I guess that must mean that he saw something in the numbers that's not going his way. The reality is that, yeah, I took an active stance against the park, right? I did not feel it was the right investment. It actually reduced the total number of fields available from 9 to 5. So it was going to reduce capacity. It was completely financed by the Miami Lakes taxpayer. And look, we're not always going to agree, but as I have consistently throughout my 6 years, I am always in favor of allowing residents to make decisions for themselves, right? Additionally, for example, you were trying earlier to create like this whole thing that you led on the stormwater bond. That was Ed Peterman's idea to put on the agenda. And while, yeah, the mayor and I agreed that for a bond of 15.5 million, whatever it was, to go out to the voters, ultimately I voted for it, as did the mayor. That's just the facts, you know. So we were all in favor of that improvement, and I have voted for every project since. Hold on, please. You know, so just to come full circle, my position, which I know for some may not always be clear, you know, because maybe they want somebody to pound their chest all the time and you know, make a show out of things. But the reality is that, yeah, I voted to let the residents decide. And every time it came up, whether at the last forum that I did with you, when residents would ask me, when the Laker asked me about it, when the list goes on, I was very clear I was against it and why.
Mayor Pinellas, can I respond only on the
If it's
stormwater?
If it's very brief.
Bond, yes. So it is very brief. And that was one of my first council meetings. And I spent months listening to the residents talk about stormwater issues. And unfortunately, the appetite on the council wasn't conducive to putting their name on what is essentially a very big expenditure, right? But those improvements needed to happen, and our residents didn't need to decide whether or not somebody's house should be flooded every time it rains. And I put my big boy pants on and I led the charge. And Councilman Dieguez and I disagreed. I was able to form consensus with Councilwoman Rano, with Councilmember Garcia and Rodriguez and others. And I was able to get that passed through. Hindsight is always 20/20 if you don't have foresight. The difference between doing that project at the time that we approved it versus waiting for the voters to approve it would have made millions of dollars in savings, in interest costs, and reduced construction costs. So moving forward with those projects at the time that I pushed to move forward saved the taxpayers millions of dollars.
Thank you. There's many other issues we could get into: traffic, quality of life. We don't have time. We're running out of time. I do want to talk a little bit about this increasingly partisan political environment we're in, because I think it's important, right? We're seeing that many of our local and municipal elections, which are nonpartisan, are becoming dominated by political affiliation. In fact, for the first time in many, many years, Miami-Dade County will be electing a sheriff, a tax collector, or supervisor of election, et cetera, in partisan elections. That would all happen on November 5th. It was interesting that as part of the Miami Lakes questionnaire, all of you, for the most part, pledged to keep partisanship out of town hall deliberations. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement from all of you? However, there's always a however. As voters, you will be asked, amendment number 1 on the ballot, all of you will have a chance to vote on that as well, asks whether we should adopt partisan elections for the school board, which remain one of our non-partisan races. And I'd like to get a quick answer from all of you. Ms. Gonzalez, should we have partisan elections for the school board?
Definitely not.
No. How about Mr. Fernandez?
I think the residents should, I think the residents deserve to know what party affiliation their elected officials belong to.
And that would require that we hold partisan elections. Mr. Dieguez?
I think with the way that some of the issues are going on the school board, we do need to have a our partisan identity.
Mr. Pinera?
I agree with Josh and Tony. I believe that we should have a partisan.
Mr. Garcia? It should be nonpartisan. How about for the town of Miami Lakes then? Should we, to use your logic, Mr. Fernandez, should elections here in Miami Lakes be partisan?
I don't necessarily think they need to be partisan. I mean, I think that the demographics in Miami Lakes speak for themselves. I think most of the candidates that are up here have the same political ideologies overarchingly. I think as a point of information, having that listed on the ballot would be useful for the residents and just decrease any ambiguity that they may have.
Now, just so we could understand how you would go about dealing with issues impacting Miami Lakes, you earlier this month you attended the Christian Family Coalition's Freedom Gala, and in fact, you very proudly posted on Instagram that you were a sponsor of that event. Just for the record, and I'm not saying I'm for or against what they stand for. However, the Christian Family Coalition is known, quite frankly, as one of the ultra-conservative groups here in Miami-Dade County. Some people would label them as radically conservative. They've opposed most of the equal rights issues that we've been seeing progress on over the course of the last few years. They are against same-sex marriages. They are currently very active against Amendment 4. They have a voter guide that is replete with endorsements of staunch conservative Republicans and no Democrats. My question to you, Mr. Fernandez, are those the philosophies and the principles that will guide you as mayor of Miami Lakes?
So I overwhelmingly agree with a lot of their positions, and those are my own personal moral beliefs, and those absolutely color my decisions, both as an elected official and as a person. You can't check those at the door. That said, I don't necessarily agree with every position that organization has, nor do I always agree with every position my party has. But I'm more than open and willing to be able to put those things aside. I remember in my youth a very young Mayor Alex Pinellas bucking his own party several times. You know, I think if you were able to do it, I'm able to do it as well.
Mr. Dieguez, you wrote on Facebook on May 21st, quote, "You were outraged that the Biden administration allows our enemies to gain the upper hand by touring secure facilities. This follows a long list of concessions to the regime. South Florida residents should be concerned that the blueprints to secure areas at Miami International Airport are in the heads of a state sponsor of terror." Were you pandering to Republican voters in Miami Lakes with that statement?
No, that's what I believe. It's what I've always believed. And I would say that to any voter.
If you've always believed that, that very same day, later in the evening, the Miami Herald reported that similar visits by Cuban officials had occurred since 2011, including visits to Miami International Airport during the Trump administration. I didn't see any statements from you regarding similar visits when Trump was president.
Well, the news did not break until the Biden administration. So he is the current president. So naturally, my criticism was tailored at him. But yeah, shame on us for allowing these, again, as state sponsors of terror to be having these free visits to secure areas of Miami International Airport going back to the Barack Obama days. Yeah, I'd criticize all of them on that, and hope that they do better.
Ms. Gonzalez, you mentioned that partisan elections probably were not good for the school board, correct? I believe that was your answer. eh, I looked up your voting record, and the reality is that you were a non-party, you were not affiliated as a voter until earlier this year. You didn't switch to become a Republican until 2024. Why is that? Why was it important for you to switch right before the election to Republican?
There was not a specific reason as to why I changed it. The reason I always stayed as a voter with non-partisan is because I believe in voting for the right leader and not voting just for a party. And that was the reason why, my personal reason why. And the reason why I said in regards to I believe that we shouldn't go partisan on the school board is because as leaders, I think we should keep it in schools and we should keep it here in town, being able to represent everyone, being inclusive of everyone, not just thinking or being geared toward a specific party. And that is the question that I get asked the most. And at the very beginning, I didn't know what to answer because I don't know what they were referring to. And I always have to clarify that I am here to represent every resident, regardless whether they vote for me or not, regardless the color they represent. That's why I believe that we should keep it here in Miami Lakes, a non-partisan position.
Mr. Garcia, partisan elections for the school board and for the town of Miami Lakes. What do you think? You turn your mic on, please.
When you, if I understand the question correctly, can you tell me a little bit of what you're trying to ask me?
Well, Amendment 1 on
Yes.
the ballot
Okay.
proposes partisan elections that our school board members be elected by partisan elections. Do you favor that, yes or no? No. Would you favor town of Miami Lakes elections, your elections to be by party?
No.
Okay. You were a registered Democrat until 2016. You then switched to Republican. Was there a reason why you did that?
As I told you last time, I don't ever recall me ever switching parties.
You did tell me that last time, but you haven't cleared the record. So the public record says that you were a Democrat until 2016. Also, the record says that you have never voted in a primary election. You're a pretty good voter in general elections, but you don't vote in primary elections. Is that why you don't think we should have partisan elections?
When was the last time that you saw on my record that I
This
didn't?
morning.
I'm sorry? No. When was the last election that you didn't see me, if I may ask?
You didn't vote in August.
I didn't, and there's a reason I didn't vote in August. I had a very serious illness in my family. And one of my family members was going through something very serious, and that's why I couldn't even.
So in spite of 2 weeks of early voting, over a month worth of vote by mail, and election day, you were not able to vote, not just in this primary, but you have never voted in a primary. Just for the record, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong. Everybody has the right. I just want to point that out.
I'm going to vote now.
This is not the primary. This is the general election. Mr. Panera, partisan elections for the school board, for town of Miami Lakes. What do you think?
For the school board, I do agree we should have a partisan election.
Should or should not?
We should. I think that the way that the school is headed, we need to find out and know what these individuals believe in and what their background is. They affect our youth. They set rules and curriculum. So we should definitely have a bipartisan. For the town of Miami Lakes, I don't think so. I don't think it makes a difference whether we're Democrat or Republican. We vote on, like you said, the most important things that we have as councilmen is the budget and the town manager. So I don't think that being a Republican or Democrat makes a difference as long as you put the residents first.
So now that there's pretty much consensus that the partisanship doesn't matter, real quick, who's better for Miami Lakes? Vice President Harris or former President Trump? Who's better? Quick. Who's better for Miami Lakes? Who's better? Who are you going to vote for?
I'm going to vote for Mr. Trump.
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 You see, no partisanship here.
Finally, something we can all agree on.
Amendment number 3, adult personal use of marijuana, yes or no?
No.
No.
Negative.
And amendment number 4, amendment to limit government interference with abortion, Mr. Garcia, yes or no?
Actually, I think anytime you get involved with issues with, I couldn't tell you that because I'm not a woman,
But you
but
still
I
got-
would leave that, I would leave that definitely to the doctors.
So you're voting yes
For what?
to
Let's get that clear.
the amendment is to restrict government interference with abortion, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Panera?
No.
Mr. Dieguez?
No.
All right, quick
Maybe-
closing.
Maybe I didn't answer. Maybe I didn't understand that.
You want to
question.
amend your answer?
The bottom line is that if there's anything to do with the mother of a child, that should be between a doctor and that patient.
Then you're going to vote yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's, we're way over time, Gina, I'm
correct.
sorry.
I want to make sure we correct that. For the
Let's very briefly, take as long as you need, but be very brief in your closing statements. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Actually,
Your mic,
closing,
please.
my closing statement is, I've said this. I've said this numerous times. If this town gives me 3% of your trust, I'm going to earn the other 97, and that's no blah, blah. Actually, the solution to Miami Lakes is here, and that's me. That's Angelo Cuadra Garcia.
Mr. Panera?
Thank you, Mr. Panes. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. To me, leadership is about service and it's about putting the people first. And I've always done that. I've always put the residents first when it comes to anything, helping, doing. I've been a resident, like I said, here for 32 years, never been convicted of a crime, never lied to a police officer, been a model resident in this town. If you give me your 99, 100% of your trust, I promise to always put you first. I'm a call away. I promise to cut your tree down if you need it or take your trash out, whatever you need. I'm here for you. Thank you.
Mr. Dieguez?
Thank you. And really quickly, because the way the night's going, my comment to Councilmember Moderator is likely to end up in an attack ad from one of my opponents. I just want to be clear for the record that that was a joke. But with that said, it has been my privilege and honor to serve the community, not just over the last 6 years as your council member, but prior to that also as a longtime volunteer in the community. And I would love to continue that service as mayor. I feel that what you heard tonight is that very clearly I have a strong grasp on the issues. And rather than trying to find every opportunity to make juvenile comments and putting on big boy pants and this and the other, one of us is going to have a clear and sober head when approaching the issues. And so I hope to earn your support. You can visit joshdieguez.com to learn more. And there you'll find more information as well as ways where you can reach me directly, where I will be more than happy to continue this conversation with you directly.
Mr. Fernandez?
So I want to thank you, Mayor Pinellas, and everybody that joined us today. Look, Miami Lakes was the town that I always dreamed of living. It wasn't easy to get here. It took a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of long nights, and a lot of saving up to be able to fulfill my dreams. And what I promised the residents is what I have done here on the dais for the last 4 years, which is give you my all, give you the best version of me, give you everything that comes with me, not just my my address book and my contacts, but my heart, my soul, my blood and my tears. And that's what you always get from me. You'll get an impassioned leader. Sometimes my passion may get a little bit out of hand, but it's because I believe in Miami Lakes. I believe in the residents, and I will do everything in my power to protect you, to lead you into 4 years of prosperity. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
In my case, I do have a vision, and that vision is to represent every Miami Laker, including myself. That's the decision I made a few months ago, and I stand firm behind it. And what I can guarantee you is, although I don't have an extensive network of contacts, political contacts, although I do not have facts and numbers based on the budget or anything, because I am not part of it, what I can tell you is that I bring with me an extensive experience of what I think is needed, and it should be included in every person that wants to represent others. And that is my desire, not only my desire, but my ability to serve and to find solutions. That is what I'll be doing. I'll be representing every single Miami Laker, and I will be here to work diligently towards finding the solution to every problem, not just one, not just two, not just giving up, but finding a solution to every problem. And if I don't, because I don't have enough time in 4 years, then I would leave it ready and planted so that it would be taken over by someone else.
Gina, did you want to close the program, or let's give the candidates a round of applause. Let's thank them for their service. And wishing everybody a fantastic evening.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor?
you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask to have everybody, all of us give a hand of applause to the actual audience?
Sure.
Because they're the most important ones.